There he is, the man, the myth, the legend. I see you broke out the Vikings hat again. Are we over last week's shenanigans?
Yeah, I was wearing it last week.
What week was it? It was a week or two ago that you put you an Eagles thing over top of it.
No, it wasn't Eagles. God, Eagles?
What? I don't know. I don't recognize those. I haven't watched sports like ever. I'm too. There it is. Whatever that team is. Is it a Seahawk? What is it? Seahawk. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm too hyperactive to sit down and watch a ball game. So I don't watch sports. All right. So what's up, everybody? How are you guys? Hope y'all are staying warm. Steve says that it's cold up his way. I'm sure some of you guys are probably cold as well. It's not terrible here, but it's not. I mean, you're not going to want to walk outside with shorts on either. So, you know, it's down in the cooler temps. So, what you got going on over there?
Yeah, we we got above zero today, so that's the plus.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think it's been 40-something, 50-something today was the high, I think. Now, like next week, we're supposed to have some teens, I think, or later on this week, whichever you want to call it. But, yeah, I'm not looking forward to that at all. Because the mini split is okay out here, but because this building is so drafty, that's not gonna work. So I do have my little propane heater over there that I can use to kind of knock the chill off if I need to from time to time.
Yeah, I fired up my heater. I don't remember when. It was late morning, and it worked out there quite a bit today, but it got it up to 60 degrees, but yeah, I was just like, just going to go inside for this evening.
Yeah. So what you printing on over there?
Some things, a little bit at request to my wife. They're these gag gift box things. This one is nice because it only has like 8 screws or something like that, and here's another one. So
yeah,
she was wanting a few different ones of those printed up, and so I might put them together and throw a little video together on them as far as like which ones work well or which ones are a pain. But yeah, just trying to print a few of these out. Got the P1S running and the A1. The Flash Forge, I've got a new head coming for it, or at least the extruder part. I think mine got a little hot, and I'm trying to get it cleaned out, but it keeps clogging up on me. So I figured, why don't I just order a couple spares while I'm working on this one? Well, Amazon has entered their it's holiday time, so we're guaranteeing nothing territory and shipping times.
Yeah.
So I'm still waiting for those to show up, and I might deep clean that one tomorrow, but we'll have them all running.
Roger. Well, somebody's asking what the weather is here, and it looks like it's going to be somewhere. The lows are around 32, 31. So, highs are in the 50s. So I guess it's going to be, I thought Brandy had told me it was going to be cooler, but it doesn't appear to be. It's 42 tonight. So, or I guess right now it's 42. So yeah, it's not going to be too cold. It doesn't look like. That's great. That is awesome. So yeah, we'll just pray that is correct, because she had mentioned something about it. We might be going back down into the teens. I don't know where she saw that at, but that didn't say that. So it's a good deal. It's a good thing.
Well, there's even the weather places like to sensationalize things. They'll get like one model that'll say, well, it could do this, and then they all of a sudden that's all you see on Facebook is everybody going, if they do that with the snow amounts up here, they're like, oh my gosh, we could get 16 inches, and that's like the
worst case scenario.
Yeah, it's like one model says, well, it is possible, but most of them are tracking, much lower.
Yeah. Yeah, I was telling somebody the other day, that's the only job that you can have, and you can be wrong like 28 days out of the month and still stay employed. So,
well, you know, it's a science. There's still a lot of variables.
But yeah. All right. So who all's in the chat here? What we got going on? We'll talk about your Vikings.
Yeah, they did do well today. I mean, it was not exactly against a great team, but they had a shutout, 31-0. So you know, better than nothing.
Brian, I haven't been able to sleep a whole lot, really. I mean, I sleep, I don't know, a little bit later some days, but I've gotten to where I'm waking up earlier than what I should. So I don't know what the deal is with that. It's like I don't know. I don't know if it's just because I'm getting to that point where I really ain't got nowhere to be, and I actually don't mind getting up. I don't know. It's just I woke up this morning and it was like, what was it, like 6? I woke up the first time at like 5:30, and I'm like, oh my gosh, no. So it's different. I've been working on some more cutting boards tonight there, Steve.
Usually our cats won't let us sleep in that late. You at least have to get up to feed them.
A little gray streak in that one there, but yeah, working on some of these, playing with the alien cell. Been using it today, doing some testing with it and running it, and so far, I'm gonna be honest with you, it's not terrible at all. Like I kind of like it. The work area is definitely bigger than most diode lasers, especially the enclosed variant. And so far, the software still needs some improvement. There's a few things that I think. I mean, they just released another patch. So I know they're working on it, but the software still needs a little bit more. Like some of the functions and stuff are kind of hard to find, like we talked about the other day. I mean, they're there. Like I found one today. Finally found it on how to make a layer to where it wouldn't engrave. Just use it as a tool line, and it was a tiny little button hidden in a place that I was not expecting to find it. So, but all in all, I did figure out that it actually will work with LightBurn over the wireless, but I'm still having a little bit of issues with some of the LightBurn commands. But it did connect to it. I can home it, send it out in the work area and stuff like that over Wi-Fi in LightBurn. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, I did have to set it static IP though. It didn't. When I turned it on today, it did not like the IP setup. Now that just may be my network, because my network does have a lot of repeaters and all that. But yeah.
I mean, it's nice when they work on Wi-Fi, but I don't know. I can understand companies being a little leery of that.
Yeah.
But
well, this one seems to be doing. It does really good on their software over Wi-Fi. That's why I've been running it all afternoon. And matter of fact, there's what I just did on that cutting board. They the patch that they did fix the I guess you could say the darkness of the background, but they've still got the photo update button right there. And this is one of the things that I'm going to send them and let them know, hey, I need to fix this. That's the photo button, but it says live view. But if you zoom in, like to do something or whatever, you can't get back to that button unless you zoom out. So like right here. So if I'm zoomed in doing something, I can't update the picture. You got to zoom all the way back out to be able to see it. So it's just little stuff like that, like things that just aren't convenient, like where they're located. It's just not real convenient and stuff like that. But so far, so good. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I got the honeycomb in. and I do like the honeycomb, it drops down into a hole in the machine. So like it can't move. So that was pretty cool. Let me save this
That's good.
board file. But yeah. But so far, there hadn't been a whole lot of sleeping too late. Now, I ain't going to lie. Some days I get up earlier than others. Mm-hmm. There you go.
Yeah. Yeah, they did.
Dum, dum, dum. Yeah, Dark Force says Elegoo has their carbon 3D printer for like $270 right now. Yeah, I've seen a lot of them are having some pretty good sales. I have been threatening to get that new Bamboo Lab P2S. I just went yesterday and placed an order for a bunch more filament. I'm slowly getting away from PLA and going strictly to PETG. And so this week I have been running the dog mess out of my old printer. Hang on. These wheels roll really good, by the way, Steve. I appreciate you on that one.
Well, told you.
I don't have to like shove myself across the room anymore. So you know the Bigfoot plate adapter plate that I made. Yeah, I've been mass producing those, and this is quite the little job for the A1 knocking one of these out. It takes a little while, but look at the results though. I mean, they look good, look nice. The only thing that I didn't do is I didn't put the orange on the text where it says Bigfoot, but the reason is, and it might not have mattered, but I didn't want to do it. And the reason is because I only had PLA in orange, and so I didn't know about trying to put PLA over the top of the PETG. I didn't figure it would hurt anything since it's non-structural, but I was like, it's my luck, it'll flake off and just look ratty. And so I didn't do it. I just left them black raised letters. So yeah, well, I got these. It's both pieces. So ones of you that don't know what this little file looks like when it goes together is this piece and this piece. Like this part goes behind it, and there's holes, and then so that I haven't put them all together. If I can get snap, it's tight. You put this behind here, and then it snaps together, and it's really, really tight. But I did it on purpose so that once you put it together, it don't fall apart. There it went. So I need to be able to lay it on the table. Hang on. There it went.
Seems a little too tight.
Well, it's not too tight because when it gets together, it don't come apart. But doing it right, I ain't got nowhere to like put it on the table and mash down. There we go. Yeah, they just about need a rubber mallet, but once you snap them together, though, it's there, and so yeah, it doesn't fall off. You actually, to get it apart, what I've been doing is I take an ink pen and have to put it down in the hole in the front and push to get them snapped apart. And a part of it too is I haven't snapped this one together at all since taking it off the machine. And yep, there's some little fuzzies that get right there around the hole that I had to kind of knock loose. It's like just some debris. So that was, I probably should have done that before trying to snap it together. But anyway, I brought them out here just to go ahead and fit check them and all that before I put them in shipping containers to be shipped out. Yeah. So I got 4 of them that are going out sometime this week whenever I can get to the post office. So I think they'll fit in the padded envelopes. I mean, they're made out of PETG, so as long as nobody runs over them with a forklift or nothing, they should be fine. So, but yeah, it's pretty cool little design. I'm actually really happy with it.
Your postman won't pick them up to your place?
Well, they might if I had the boxes and the little prepaid envelopes and all that kind of stuff. They might get them out of my mailbox.
Because you can go on their site and just request a pickup and then tell them where it's going to be.
Yeah, but I don't have the little flat rate boxes and stuff.
You don't need the flat rate boxes. You just fill out I have packages to get picked up.
Oh yeah, no, that's too much trouble. I just go by the post office.
Well, you just made it sound like it was a pain to go to the post office.
They would have to know the size box I need and bring it with them. And
oh, you don't have boxes?
No, I don't have anything.
Oh.
I got those. That's what I'm saying. They got to be packaged.
Right.
I got to have the padded envelopes or the boxes or whatever. And if I'm going to go to the post office to pick those up, I'm just going to drop those off while I'm there.
You know, they're like anywhere will be cheaper than the post office to get those.
No, they have it's like $10 anywhere in the US for the little boxes. That's what I usually use for like Christmas ornaments and stuff. You can just walk in there and say, I need a flat rate box. And if it fits in the box, it's a flat rate. It's like $10.48 last time I did it. So
it's your money.
That's all I got. That's all I got. It's either that or the UPS store. And UPS store. Woo, no thank you. FedEx, definitely not.
Get your own packaging, which is cheaper, and you pay normal rates instead of the flat rate, and it's cheaper. Unless you're shipping something really heavy in a small box.
I've always just done it with the post office. That works for me. That way I ain't got to fool with it. I don't do a whole lot of shipping. I don't plan to. If I were going to do a lot of it, maybe, but I'd have to buy a sticker printer. I'd have to buy paper and stuffings and bubble wrap. And yeah, no thanks. I got nowhere to do it at anyway. All right, Dave says, is there foam that works for cutting tool inserts? I don't do with a whole lot of foam, but I know you have over the years with your airplane stuff. What do you recommend?
Well, I haven't done that.
Oh, you hadn't done any of the tool insert stuff?
No, there's just some stuff called Kaizen foam that you can buy from Fast Cap. It's the same stuff as like what they ship all of our lasers and such in. So, which is a more expensive way to get it, I guess. But yeah, I've seen people cut with their lasers, but I haven't tried it. You know, after a certain point, it's going to come in and out of focus, and so depending on the thickness you have and the type of machine you have, if you can put a longer focal lens on it, it would work. But I don't know that I'd want to try cutting anything too thick with, say, a diode.
Yeah, most of the stuff that I get in, a lot of it's like glued together layers. So I guess they're cutting it with some type of laser. Maybe that's why it's glued together like that. And some of it's not. Some of it's maybe they cut it with like a wire or something. But a lot of the stuff I'm getting these days is probably 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch thick, and just like layers that glued together. I haven't been brave enough to try to cut any of it yet. All right, so Tom's asking, what is your go-to program to design for 3D printing? Most everything that I've done, I do in Fusion. And I'm slowly learning more and more about Fusion. There's just so much that I learned just enough to do whatever it is I need to do, and then I move on. But then when I come back, like today, I was kind of like, how do I make threads of a certain size? I mean, so when I get to a roadblock, that's when I have to sit down and learn something. But Fusion is what I use for like making these hose adapters and stuff like this. I design all this in Fusion 360. And I know Steve uses a couple of different programs. What about you, Steve?
I pretty much use SketchUp, but I wouldn't really recommend it. I use it because I started using it like 15 years ago, but it's not a true solid 3D rendering tool. They more work with just faces, and you have to do some cleanup with it afterwards. But it's old habits die hard, you know.
Yeah.
And until you sit down and force yourself to learn something else. I've done some other things, you know, when people are asking what they should start out with. I've played around with Tinkercad to kind of, do some basic things and show people kind of how to get started with it, because it does teach some basic principles of 3D modeling. But at that mode, depending on your printer, if you've got anything that's like Orca slicer base or bamboo slicer, things like that, there's some basic tools built into that program that you can just kind of extrude shapes and subtract areas and such and do some basic 3D modeling in there.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, Fusion's about all I've got any experience with so far. I tried playing around with was it Tinkercad? But I guess because I was so used to Fusion, it just seemed harder. I know it's not, but it just seemed harder because I didn't know where everything was. I have used the the other day I had something I had to print. I did use the tools where you can cut it into sections or whatever on my 3D printer, but I haven't never actually designed anything in the slicer software. Let's see what else we've got going on. Well, crazy lane logistics. I got the file is in my Etsy shop. If you have a 3D printer or laser big enough to cut it, you can download it there and have your own in just a little while, depending on which printer you have. If you have an A1, it takes about 2.5 hours to print the base part. It's not real fast, but now I've got it to where it's pretty solid and everything on my slicer. And Spark 33 says brand new to the channel. Just got the XTool S1. That is a solid diode machine right there. I like it. Do yourself a favor though. Stick with XTool software. A lot of people are having problems with LightBurn running it. That's why I quit running LightBurn with it a long time ago.
Yeah, you can, but they've polished their software up quite a bit. That if you still want to use LightBurn, design in there and just export it as an SVG, import it into XCS or XTool Studio to do the actual machine operations. It'll be much easier. Yeah. I mean, it's free and it works well. So unless you have a need for LightBurn and that's your only laser, save yourself the money. I mean, I'm a LightBurn fan. I've been using it for years. It works with so many lasers, but we're seeing more and more with the newer lasers coming out with a lot of the proprietary stuff. They're developing their own softwares with it. So,
yep. DJS is asking, been using my Reno 65 and cutting 1/8" Baltic birch with it. Cuts great, except in some spots it scorches the wood and doesn't cut all the way through. The rest of it falls out. Running 35% power. I'm pretty sure we're both going to go the same route with it, but what do you think that might be?
If it's random spots, even Baltic birch has... they put what they call cookies in it, and so they're patching the veneers and the layers, and it'll have extra glue. If it's not true Baltic birch, it's even highly likely that it could have just a filling of glue or other type of putty to fill voids in it. And no matter what you do to those spots, there will always be some areas where it just struggles to get through. Now, there can also be grain variations and such, and that's why when I'm, a lot of people ask, how do I interpret my test cut files? And you see what its maximum will do, and then I back it off about 15% or so. So I'll not run it at the top speed, knowing that it's going to run into these errors and such. Now, if the area where it's scorching is always in the same spot, you might have a slight issue with the mirror alignment, or you might have a low spot in your bed. So it kind of depends on if it's random or if it's consistently in the same spot.
Yeah, that's gonna be my thing. If it's consistently, like, say it's in the bottom right corner where it's all happening, then beam alignment would be one of the things that I would look at, because what's happening is when you get down in that corner, maybe you're getting some reflectivity off the side of the nozzle or something like that from the beam. or, like Steve said, maybe your honeycombs drop down on that corner. It's out of focus. I mean, it's definitely going to be either focus or beam path alignment if it's consistently in the same spot every time you make a cut. That would be a dead giveaway that if it's repeatedly in the same spot, that it's either a problem with your focus or your beam path.
Yeah.
I had a buddy of mine bought a new machine, and he was kind of like, I guess, old fashioned. It had a tag hanging inside it. He just left the tag on the inside hanging in there just because he thought it was cute. And what was happening was when the laser would move through, the tag was getting into beam path, and it would cause a tab. And he called me. He's like, "Man, you got to come help me set this thing up. I can't get it to work right. It's leaving, like it keeps leaving just random spots." And that's what it was that tag that's whatever it was hanging down and kept getting in front of the beam path and causing a problem. I reached over when I realized what it was. I reached over and pulled that thing off there, and it had like little scorch marks on it. And I was like, "Well, there's your problem right there." He's like, "Seriously?" Yep. So sometimes it's the small things in life that'll get you.
Yeah. But yeah, when you're doing your beam alignment, you do want to make sure that like you do it both near and far. If you just align it at the far, but you move it near, it could, your beam can still move even though you didn't move the other axes. So you want to double check both near and far, both axes as you're aligning that, because otherwise it will move around.
Yeah. Somebody was asking about software. There is this is one of my adapters right here, and I've got this other the alien cell that I need to make an adapter for. So I took this adapter that I've already printed, and basically this is the closest one I got to fitting it. So I'm going to make a duplicate copy of that one and just take some slack out of this one here, make this piece here a little larger so that it'll work with the alien cell, and wind up printing that thing. So it's really handy having the ability to do that, because it saves so much time. So much time. Matter of fact, so like here in Fusion, you can see right here where these different measurements are. All I've got to do is change those. Once I replicate this file, I just change those measurements right there, and I can adjust this end image. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn around and I'm going to save this file as a separate file before I make any changes to it. And then change it to alien cell. Cap locks. And so now I can just save that, save it as a different file so that I don't mess up the one that I've had. And now all I do is measure these measurements on this particular one that I have in my hand and make the changes right here. So I'm going to do that right quick while we sit here so you guys can see it here in just a minute. But I got to do some measuring first and write it down right here. My little notepad.
Spark 33 is asking, I was wondering, is there a certain spot for the S1 setting for, say, cutting boards, different woods, tumblers, and such? If you're using XCS, they have a lot of material. They have their material library in there that it's going to get you in the ballpark, but it's still good to run your own test grid on there. And it's fairly easy to do in XTool Studio. That will really help you dial in for what you're looking for, your specific material. But you can kind of go by their material settings to kind of get you in the ballpark. Just trying to get it open here, and I can show you really quickly what I'm talking about. We will bring this in. All right, so when you have an object in here, you have to have something in here first, but you can set whether your score, engrave, or cut, but then you can also come up here to your material option. And so, for example, if you have a basswood, plywood, you can hit apply. And now when you come to this one-click set, they give you a grid of where they have tested this specific laser. So this right now is set to the XTool P3 80 watts. So, you know, they're suggesting 50 millimeters a second and 90% power to cut that out. And as I mentioned earlier, you never want to necessarily go up to the top because you're going to run the risk of hitting glue spots or other areas. Now, if you want to do your own test grid, you can start with an object, and I like to come down to their basic elements. I don't like to do just a straight circle or square. I kind of like this raindrop item because it gets both a right corner as well as an arc. So you grab your object, you want to set the type, whether you want an engrave or a cut, and then you come over to this applications tab and come to material test array. Here you can set your speeds. So like on that one, it was 50 millimeters a second and 90% power. Well, if we wanted to test above and below that, with cutting, I usually go about 60 to 100% power because there's no sense in cutting slower than 50% power, really. And then I would go maybe from 30 on up to, say, 70. And you see over here, it's building it as we go. We can add rows if we want. And once you're done with that, you have your test grid that you can place in your area. You can do your alignment or use the camera to actually grab the location and such, depending on your laser. But here it will do this test grid from 30 on up to 70 and millimeters a second and 60 to 100% power. You can do that for both cutting and engraving, and that's really where you can dial in your settings, and you'll end up with your own cards. Oops, sorry. You'll end up with your own cards that, well, I got to grab another object here, that will look like that setting that they had in there. So you'll get a grid like this.
Fun fact that I found out the other day, because I was having some issues with the UV being able to see the text because it was in line mode and it was really, really faint because it was in line mode. You can actually click over there and change the engrave settings on the text only and change it to feel and put if you know what the settings are in there. I didn't know you could do that. I accidentally discovered it the other day, and it's been really handy.
Yeah, you would come down to the score one here. You need to expand. You need to expand your multi. I'm not showing it.
You got to go over to the right where it says multiple or whatever, and then.
All right, so you click on your object. You got multi-selected. You click that caret back, and you scroll all the way down here to score. This is for the text, and you can slow down the speed or increase the power, or as David was saying, change it to engrave, which will help darken it up.
Yeah, because I was having an issue with some of the clear stuff using the UV, because it's the line is so fine on that machine that, I mean, literally I'd have to take pictures and zoom in, and that's partially because my eyes aren't what they used to be. But I was like, man, I got to be able to make this engrave instead of just do a score. And so I changed that, and it made it a lot more readable, especially for some materials that I had a good idea of what an engrave would be. But I got my measurements done, and I'll show you guys with this, taking that 3 to 4 inch adapter and modifying it for this application. This is the reason I like Fusion. Is I just measured this, and the inner diameter of this little piece of hose that comes with the machine is 80 millimeters. So all I've got to do is right here where it shows this part, which is actually going to be the inner diameter of the hose. The double click that, changes that to 80. It's going to expand that. Of course, this is a little thick now. So what I like to do is make it 3 millimeters thick, 2.5 millimeters thick on both sides. So I'll just take the 80 and subtract 6 from that, which would give me 74. And then, you know, you can just adjust this however you wanted to. If I wanted to make it, let's see, let's do 76. That'll make it 2 millimeters thick. That makes the wall of the inner part 2 millimeters thick. And then when I hit finish sketch, now my part it's ready to go. Like it did all of the changes to those measurements and my extrusions and everything. And so now I can actually print this out. If I click there, you can see down here, the outside diameter is now 80 millimeters instead of the 77.5, which is what it was for that 3 to 4 inch adapter. And so, yeah, so that makes it a lot easier in my opinion. And if I wanted to really get fancy with it, I can roll these corners and do all kinds of
what you need to do is start working on getting them tapered so you don't have such a
well, I can do that. I like these. The only thing with if you taper them, you do have less supports, but this is just so much easier when it comes to fixing it.
It's less support, but it's also better for the airflow.
Yeah, I can. Well, the airflow is coming from the small end going to the big end, so
it's still better. It's still better for the airflow. Yeah. You're creating vortices there. That's going to cause a lot of turbulence.
I'm just using this for testing, so I'm not too concerned with that. But you can do. I have some that are shaped like funnels, but these are just my little test setup ones where I can set the machine up and run it. And I'm running a fan behind it and a fan in front of it, so I'm not really worried about any kind of eddy pools or anything forming in there. But yeah, so that's all I got to do now is export that as an STL and then send it to the printer, and that's easy enough. So and print that. And then I'll export that and I'll go over to Bamboo Studio and hit print. And then here in a little while, I'll have an adapter. But yeah, you can do like I've got some of them that are a little more, but when you start trying to taper, one thing is you end up with a print that's this long because you're having to taper because you got to have flat surface to connect to, taper, and then flat surface to connect to. And so your project ends up being 3 times as long. I may never
should be able to set your distance and have the taper go between them.
Well, yeah, you could do the offset, but then you're still going to add like that much to it regardless. Because if you have a taper from here to here, unless it's like this, because technically then it is going to have a taper. But for these, like I said, I print it, I use it with the machine. I may never use it again once I get through testing this machine. If I keep the machine, it stays in service. Maybe we do something different, but those work great. The only thing that I do like about the tapered ones better is if you keep the angle, was it 32 degrees or better? I think it is. You don't have to use supports. So I do like that. But like I said, with these, not really concerned. Like this other one I did a while ago, it's actually got a little bit of a taper to it. This one's just kind of got like rounded on the inside because I do use it with the XTool P2 or XTool. Yeah, the P2, the F1 Ultra, and the F2 Ultra. That's what that one fits. So I did kind of round it because these are kind of in service for quite a while usually. But yeah, I like having these printers to do this stuff with. Clack printed parts, alien cell 4-inch adapter. There we go. All right, what else we got going on? Oh, Kevin says, thanks for the speed advice. The laser earlier this week working great. Kevin, I don't recall exactly what that was, but you're welcome. I remember messaging with you, but I don't remember exactly what the issue was because I get lots of messages. throughout the day. I think it was on a tumbler. Yeah. Yeah, Daniel, that's what that was my you was talking about earlier. Yeah, that was my thing is I didn't want the letters to peel off. So I was like, I'd rather just run the whole thing in PETG than to do the whole thing in PLA, especially if I'm gonna be shipping them to other people. If it's something I'm using here in the shop, I'm not really worried about it being out of PLA. But my luck, I'd do it out of PLA and it go through the deserts of Arizona, and when it got there, it'd be in a puddle. So I don't I try to use PETG now. I'm moving away from PLA because I've gotten more comfortable with PETG now. Oh, I'm having to get caught up. Yeah, see, Daniel, I don't keep boxes around here. I have no storage. I have zero storage. I have zero place to put a scale, a printer, or anything like that. So, and I don't do a lot of shipping. If I were shipping stuff, starting to ship stuff a lot, then I would create a shipping area. But it's not something I'm going to be doing a lot of. Aldrich Customs asking, do either you know if LightBurn's working on 3D etching for UV crystals? Have you heard anything, Steve? I don't know why they would, but that seems a little much for it.
No, I'm not 100% sure on how consistent that technology is across types of lasers as far as the UV. Because they do have different controllers in them from between ComMarker and XTool and such. So I'm sure they've got to deal with that as well. So I haven't heard anything. I'm sure they're focusing their efforts on Milmage right now.
Yeah, they've kind of had some problems getting that off the ground good too, because it's, from what I've been seeing, it's not competitive right now with any of the other softwares. Now it's cheaper on that aspect, but they haven't talked me into coming over to it yet. All the demos and everybody using it that I've seen, it's not to the point where they're going to have to worry about me jumping ship from Vectric currently. Dale's asking, what is your opinion of engraving glass with a CO2 laser? I have been seeing varying reviews of how good it really looks. You have to test and find the right settings. That's my opinion. What say you there, Steve?
I mean, you can get a good frosting on it, but you do have to you have to play around with your focus a bit and your settings. It's very easy to get too aggressive with it and it'll start fracturing, and then you, instead of getting a frosting, you get splinter and crack, not necessarily cracks, but it can actually flake off too. And so it's definitely a balance of finding that sweet spot. There are some tricks to it. You can add a coating of dish soap. Some people have done some other things to help prevent that, but obviously UV is easier on the glass. I think it's harder because it's so temperamental with its focus, but it's not as it's not going to destroy your glass or shatter it as easy as a CO2 will.
Yeah. Yeah, UV is the way to go if you've got a flat surface or if you've got a way of making it semi-flat. But like I said, a lot of people have been complaining that that they're not getting the look they wanted on round things or whatever without a rotary, and you're not going to do that with a UV. The forgiveness on the focus is very short, so you've got to really work at keeping it in focus. So, dun, dun, dun.
Yep.
Let's see. The Rolly, if you use the honeycomb or the jig bed with the Rolly, you really all you need is a flat piece of material. Kind of like what I'm doing with the with this machine. Because it has a honeycomb that is fixed, all you really got to do is put it in the corner of the honeycomb. I use a piece of green painter's tape just to make sure it doesn't try to slide. And then I've got some honeycomb magnets around the edge as a precaution as well. And once I set that file up and use it, all I've got to do is take that little jig and throw it back in there in the bottom left corner of the honeycomb, strap it down, and I'm ready to do them again. So as long as you have a stationary fixed honeycomb or a bed or whatever, you really just need to create your item files. You don't have to have a special like jig or anything to hold it. The whole purpose of the kits that I make is to allow you to have a physical reference point when you open that file. That's all I'm doing is giving you a physical reference point inside the software. So if the honeycomb is fixed, then just use that as your physical reference. And all you need is a square piece of wood, cut your item shapes in it, throw your items in there and go with it. That one is for that's the one that's for my bamboo cutting boards. And all I got to do is lay the cutting board in that hole. And the way I've got the file set up, it knows exactly where everything is. So that's the great thing about machines that are doing that now. More and more of them are beginning to do it. Some of them aren't, and I don't know why they don't, but it really makes life easier if they'll do
that. John Thompson's asking, what do you all think of the 85X and the Anycubic Cobra Max 3? Well, I've got the 85X back here. It works well. It's just a slight smaller bed than the bamboo ones. I would say it's not quite as refined, but it's cheaper. The enclosure for it is kind of an add-on. You got to print half of it, and then they give you some acrylic panels and such, but you pay for that kit. The nice thing is that their filament system does allow you to run some things like TPU through it, so you don't need to disconnect that like you do the bamboo ones. I know some people have run through it, but bamboo doesn't recommend that you do. As far as Anycubic, I don't have experience with them yet, but FedEx says I may have some experience with them coming soon. And so I don't know about their Cobra Max. I believe I'm getting the Cobra S1 combo, which it'll have the 4-color multi-filament system on it and such. So hopefully in a few weeks I'll have better, comparison of, the Flash Forge versus the Anycubic versus the bamboo printers to share.
Yeah. Yeah, opened up a can of worms. Yeah, I wasn't arguing that it causes turbulences. I was saying I don't care that it causes turbulences because I have a 25-foot piece of 4-inch hose that is working as my exhaust. So the loss of efficiency there far exceeds the loss of efficiency of that one little thing right here. The fact that hose goes 6 foot that way, 6 foot back that way, around, and it comes back right through there and up to the machine is far more of an issue.
You just made an argument for why you should be doing it because you're dropping your efficiency from the start and then making it worse down the pipe.
No, I'm not dropping it because I have a button here that I can turn my suction.
But you are dropping it. It's physics.
I know, but I don't care because I just go from low to high on my fan because I got fans pushing here and a fan pulling right there. Not saying it's not happening. I'm just saying I don't care that it's happening. It's not a concern of mine. So that was what I was saying. I'm not arguing that it's happening. In a perfect world, I would only decrease the rate of flow by 2% per foot of travel, blah, 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 blah. But not concerned.
Basically saying don't do anything he does, so because it's wrong.
Yeah, that's not the ideal way to do it. I tell you guys that all the time. I don't do everything the best way always when it comes to stuff like that, because tomorrow I may have that hose drug over here and connected to another machine. So if I cut it today to try to make this the most efficient it can be, tomorrow I got to order another section of hose, or either I've got to go get some PVC and get rid of this. And because this is actually the pipe with the wire in it, I technically should get some smooth PVC and then put putty in all the gaps and everything, but I'm not going to do that for testing the machine.
Papa Ragu is asking, with an XTool D1 Pro 20 watt, what's the coldest temperature that you can run the machine in? So this is a
0 degrees Kelvin.
There's what you can run it in and what you should run it in. They provide their operating specs for it. And I want to say it's something like 50 degrees Fahrenheit, or maybe 40 at the coldest. It'll still run, but you start running into issues with, the mechanicals aren't going to like necessarily being cold. It also depends on, are you starting out cold, or are you bringing it in from a warm environment getting cold, or vice versa. As the laser warms up and works, but still in that cold environment, now you've got some risk of condensation. And that can damage your lens cover. It can damage your lens. It can damage your electronics and such. So some of it is really the differential in the temperatures as the machine warms up that you got to worry about as well. Some people run these things when it's darn near freezing in their shops. I would not be comfortable myself in it, so I guess I don't know why you'd want to sit there running it unless you had to. But yeah. Generally speaking, I try not to run my machines unless it's 50 degrees in the shop. And then even then, I'm trying to warm it up a little bit more than that, getting it closer to 60 if I can. I know that's not possible for everybody in, more northern climates that don't have, insulated or proactive heating. But you get down below that and you start running that risk of the machine's going to warm up and possibly cause some condensation, which could cause any number of issues with it. But it'll run cool. Yeah.
In my opinion, the belts and like the rubber wheels on some of the machines and some of the physical parts would probably have a bigger issue with the cold than with the electrical parts. Like you said, the condensation would definitely be a danger, because you start getting too much hot meeting cold, and especially in some of the areas like where I'm at, where it's really humid, and up around the lakes where Steve is, you get that humidity in the air and it drives across something that's cold. You could get some condensation.
JR is saying two things. Really liked your latest video on the P3, Steve. Nice job. Thank you. Also, why can I tag people on my laptop but not on my iPad or phone? It's something with the mobile client where they don't allow you to do certain things. And sometimes even on a desktop client, it depends on where you're at, whether you can tag someone or not. So just YouTube being YouTube. But thanks for the call out on the P3 video. I did drop one yesterday. It's making a bunch of Christmas ornaments, and here's a little sample of one of the things I did was making this ornament holder. And because I did these engraved balls on the F2 the other week and thought, hey, it'd be fun to make a holder for them. And so that one was done with, this one was colored with wood dye. So it's like a water-based dye you mix up. And this one was done with acrylic paint pens. Kind of show you the difference there. Or, you can go basic for a basic ornament. So had fun with that. I also did a bigger stocking hanger, kind of using more of the full 36-inch width of the bed. Did some work with acrylics and such. So if you haven't checked it out, please do go watch that video after this or something and leave a comment on it, because definitely appreciate that. And I had some fun with it, so hopefully you'll enjoy it as well.
Yeah. Harry says, so AD only goes so far. This is not true. It is like I said, I like averages. And there's some things that I'll bargain with, some things I won't. If you owned a construction company and you had a guy that could hang a door and everything on that door would be absolutely perfect every time he hung it, or you had a guy that could hang 10 doors in a day, but there might be one little thing that, maybe wasn't exactly perfect. Which guy would you hire if you were the one paying for
Depends. I asked this question in interviews. I asked people, is it better to be perfect and late or good enough and on time? And there's no correct answer to that, but I want to see their thought process and how they justify each one. Because for some customers, they want it perfect.
Yeah, as long as they're willing to pay for it.
Absolutely want it perfect.
As long as they're willing to pay for it. But there are what I consider to be acceptable things. I come up, like I said, I can engineer some stuff and make it work, and if it's working, I can live with it. Now, if it was going to be, if it was one of those things that I just wanted it to be perfect, then I'll spend the time. But this setup that I've got for exhaust, as long as it works and I don't smell smoke and taste materials when they're burning, I'm good. If the fan has to work a little bit harder, just let it work a little harder. But I'm not sure as far as the CFM. Somebody was asking. This is one that it's a 8-inch fan that came with Ohmtech machine, and I like the remote, and so I put it over there and I use it for my testing and for my galvos a lot because it's just convenient because I can reach over here and hit the button and turn it on low or turn it off, or I can even set it to run for 30 minutes and then cut off, all that with the controller. I'd have to look it up.
Mark Baird is asking, got a new CO2 machine. Do I need to run tests for all the different colors of acrylic and tumblers, or will they be close enough to use the same setting? Generally speaking, they're going to be close. They're not going to be as much deviation as a diode. There may be some variation, though, from translucent to or transparent to certain colors of acrylics. So like darker ones actually will absorb the heat a little bit better just by their nature. So you might find yourself backing off the power just a little bit to get that perfect polished edge. But generally speaking, they're going to be close. Tumblers, that's more of a matter of consistency of coating. So maybe brand to brand, you're still going to need to run a test. But generally speaking, the colors aren't going to matter to it so much as how much power it takes to blast through the overall coating that's on that brand of tumbler.
Yeah, if it's got the word Yeti stamped on it, you better get one to test, because those things, they put a really thick coating of powder coat on those, and if you don't run the right settings, you won't get it all off. Like, Yetis are terrible.
I had to reprint the Christmas tree because the first one failed, but
oh, cool.
So yeah, to open this up, you got to take all those screws out, and the Christmas tree is actually your screwdriver.
Wow.
So if you want to give someone a little bit of a project to open with their gift, print one of those out.
That's kind of like putting a present in a box, in a box, in a box, in a box, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, this one isn't so bad because it's like 8 screws. There was one file I saw that said 120 screws. I'm like, I don't want to assemble that, let alone print it. So this file is out on Maker World. Let me see. I'll see if I can find the link and drop it out there. And yes, Ryan, the White Vikings did win. And yes, the Washington is finished, but it was also Washington. So, I mean, we're happy, but
Yeah, right before the live, I've been sitting over here watching Klondike play with his new printer. He's killing me. I put that thing in my cart and took it out 2 more times watching this video. He got the new was it P2S?
Oh yeah.
With the AMS, and I was like, man, I literally just placed that order, all the filament. I had put it in my cart yesterday and then took it out, and then I put it back in my cart, took it out again twice today watching Klondike's video. I was like, man, I just can't justify it right now. I'm getting what I need to get done. I'm getting it done with my A1. So I'm going to have to hold off.
Well, I mean, just having bought the P1S this year and I got the Sunlow heater for it, I really can't justify the P2S.
Yeah.
It would be nice with the changes and the fixes they have, but
there's my thing printing. But yeah. Yeah, I've looked at the P1S because they've got it really marked down. And I'm be honest with you, I never used the little controller on the machine. I use a computer or my iPhone or my tablet. So I was like, you know what? I could just get the older model. But I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do yet. I'm trying to resist the urge to spend my money.
Well, I'll let you know how the Anycubic is, because that's close.
Yeah.
To the P1S.
Been playing around with that 3D scanner today, doing some scanning, and I was gonna try to take this adapter and take a piece of this hose that come from the alien cell, and I was gonna try to take these two and 3D scan it and maybe try to make me an adapter that would screw into this the way that the other one, it screws into the back of the machine like that, you know, with using the pipe. So I was like, well, maybe I can make one to where if I could scan these two together and then just reduce this ever so slightly, it would screw into the other pipe. Yeah. Not doing that. That was way too much time involved in that. I was like, you know, I'm not, it's to the point to where it is not worth it. But on the other aspect though, the 3D scanner that I've got, I was able to produce a pretty decent little model, but it's just, I'm having to learn these tools and like move things and readjust everything and all that. I was just like, you know what, this is, I don't like this approach. So I wound up quitting. But if you look though, the detail I'm getting is pretty good out of this little scanner here. And I scanned it like, I had this part just sitting on this and had it like spaced out to where it was kind of halfway perpendicular. And yeah, turned out pretty good. My little scan did. So I'm anxious to play with some other things that I'm not trying to print a tool with, because that was a little, I went and jumped off in the deep end. My first attempt at using this for anything functional, that was a mistake, because I have learned that mesh mixer, I'm not good with it at all. Like I'm terrible with mesh mixer right now. It's going to require lots of training, lots of learning, trial and error to get that figured out.
Spark
Great.
Spark 33 is asking, if you were going to get a good 3D printer to start with, where is a good start? The one I recommend to most people, if you haven't done anything, want something easy to start with and fairly successful, is the Bamboo A1. It is an open frame bed slinger, so you're going to be more of doing PETG and PLA, but you can do a lot with that, and it just works. It's very successful. If you start out with their filaments, they have profiles you can download for others. You're not stuck with them, but quick wins is kind of, you know, better than struggling through trying to upgrade and figure out and tinker with a machine. The Bamboo ones just seem to kind of work really well. So I dropped a link there for that one. They, I think, are still on sale. I don't know. They have their end of the year sale.
Yeah, they were yesterday.
So.
I haven't looked today, but they were yesterday.
So the A1, the standard one without the AMS is $300, but for another $100 you can get the AMS combo. So that gives you the little multi-filament thing on top, which isn't required, but it is nice to have depending on what you want to do. So I feel for the budget printer getting started, you know, that's a pretty solid way to start without having to struggle too much. Now, there are some people that aren't going to like it. They have a bit of a closed system. You can't do as much tinkering and playing with it. But if you're brand new to it and just want to kind of figure out what it is and play around with some things, this is a good way to start.
Trying to figure out which one of these.
Chris is asking a subjective question: what can a 10-watt UV do that a 5-watt can't? If time is not an issue, is it worth the extra cost for the 10-watt? As far as I know from my experience and research, it's really just a time saving. You're going to be able to cut some thicker material easier, but again, with enough passes, the other one will still kind of get through it. And you can ablate into certain materials. Obviously, the higher wattage is going to help you do that faster. But I don't think there's capability differences. It's just your time that's involved.
Yeah, I hadn't, like I said, I haven't seen, I've got the 10-watt module, which I'm still having some calibration issues with it. I'm waiting on ComMarker to help me get that worked out, because our machines were like pre-production machines that they modified to make them 10 watts. And so I'm having a little bit of issue with that. But just a little bit of time savings is really all that I've noticed. And then the cutting, I think maybe the cutting's a little thicker with the UV, but if you're buying a laser for cutting, you shouldn't be buying a galvo, in my opinion. Can they do it? Yes. Are they going to do a good job of it? Not with any, thicker material, maybe 2 to 3 millimeter at the most. 1.5 millimeters, you could probably do okay with cutting. Like some of the machines, like the XTool, the Ultra UV, you can tell it to drop the Z as it cuts. And so you're going to get a little better cutting ability out of it. But you got to think too, when you start dropping the Z, if you're in the outer reaches of the work area, as you drop the Z, the whole cone is coming down. And so that thin beam is actually not going to be hitting the same cut, because it's coming down every time it drops. So it's, if you're wanting to do a lot of cutting, I don't know that UVs is something you don't need to really be have high expectations when it comes to cutting with galvo type machines at all, in my opinion. That's just my 2 cents on it. But it can do a little bit of cutting with some of the thinner materials. As far as the starter bamboo starter 3D printer, like I said, I'd have to agree with Steve. The A1 is, that was my second 3D printer, and I just really, even though I could upgrade it, I could kind of halfway justify it. I like the way that it works. Like I said, it's doing me a good job, and I have no complaints. The only thing that you've got to be careful with is you got to make sure, because it is an open environment setup, you got to make sure if you have any kind of moisture issues in your house, you got to make sure to stay on top of drying your filaments. Well, like I've been printing these this week, and like I said, it's solid, good print. Like everything, the surface is nice and clean. So far I haven't had a failed print. Like I printed 5 of these so far, and the big parts of this on my A1 is 2.5 to 3 hours, I think it is. And so far I printed 5. Actually, I printed 6 because I printed 1 and I had to redo a measurement on it. So I printed 6 of these without a failure. But now, like I said, this is Pet G that I dried before I started all this too. So
it's also good to clean that build plate every so often.
Yes.
And I wipe it down with like a terry cloth and alcohol, but I took it up to the sink and used a little dish soap and really scrubbed it down, and you'd be surprised how just little micro oils and other things they pick up, and that
especially
you'll
like
get a
if you
spot.
touch it, you touch it or something. And,
So a little Dawn dish soap and rinse it off, dry it off. They work well, but it's also good to have. I always say grab a spare bed, grab some spare like hot ends or extruders or whatever your swappable part is, because it's going to get clogged, and or your bed plate's going to get a little messy, and sometimes it's nice to just swap out while you deal with cleaning up the other. So you don't want to be down just because you're waiting for relatively inexpensive parts.
Yeah, because you can have. I woke up that one morning. I started a job that I shouldn't have done it, but I knew it was going to be a long job, so I started, went to bed. I woke up the next morning and it looked like some orange spaghetti had been dumped on my machine, and it took me a while. I learned that one the hard way. It took me a couple of hours of preheating it up, and using Q-tips and paper towels and stuff to clean all of the the filament out from around the hot end and everything. So yeah, so I definitely recommend, if you're going to do it, we're all going to like not stand there and necessarily watch it, but stay close by and check in on it every so often. If you have to set yourself a timer on your watch to like look at the 3D printer every 30 minutes or something, do that, because if you catch it when it has an issue, if you catch it 30 minutes later, that's better than catching it 2 hours later. But I like to try to peek in on mine at least every 15-20 minutes. That way, if it's going crazy, hopefully I'll catch it before it becomes a real problem. But since I've been using the filament dryer and, like Steve said, keeping the bed extra clean, I haven't had any issues. Those are the two biggest things I would say is going to lead to a failure.
And speaking of, since I brought up hot ends, so there was a question about steel versus brass, and can you use them for both? You can. The brass is thermally more conductive, and so with steel you might need to adjust your temperatures a little bit more, you might have to run it a little hotter to get the same performance out of your brass ones, but the steel is going to last longer with abrasive filaments. So there's a little bit of trade-off. You can run them for both. The steel ones are more expensive, and they just take a little bit of tweaking on your temperatures and such. So, but yeah, I've swapped them out on mine, and I honestly run the hardened steel most of the time. So
yep, I think mine are steel in my A1.
The stock ones are brass, but if you've replaced them, you may have gotten hardened steel.
Really? I don't remember. For some reason, I was thinking it was stainless. It may just be coated. Let's see.
So you're gonna do this comment?
Oh yeah. Matthew's asking, any thoughts on ComMarker as a brand? I have the B6 60-watt MOPA and an Omni XE in my car. When it comes to, I've had several ComMarker like Galvo stop machines, and matter of fact, there's two sitting right there. There's two ComMarkers and an Omtech right there, and there's not a lot of difference between the machines as far as the internals and all that, the way they're set up. I can't say anything bad about either one of the companies. The only thing that I'm having problems with right now, and I don't know if this is something, like I said, I got a machine that was built before they released them. So when they sent me the 10-watt upgrade, it's kind of Frankenstein a little bit. Like there were some things that were different on our machines that we got early versus the production ones now. And I'm having a little bit of a hang up calibrating the lenses that come with it. But the one that was on it before I swapped it out calibrated fine. Like it did fine. So I think it's got something to do with the fact that they're sending us the new gen module to put on our prototype base. That's the only issue I've ever had with any of their machines. The ComMarker software for anything other than the crystals, it's okay, but I'm not like over enthused about it. It's a little lacking in some ways, but for the 3D crystals and for the images and stuff, you kind of have to have that because LightBurn just does not support it at all. So, you know, their software, like I said, it's still a work in progress. But as far as the machine themselves, I haven't had any issues other than, like I said, this one little bit of calibration problem that I've ran into with this replacement 10 watt. And I don't know. I'm just waiting on them to kind of help walk me through where I've screwed up, or, you know, maybe I got a bad like setup or whatever. It works. I can engrave stuff, but like the calibration of the lens. So if I do like a 10 millimeter circle, it's not always going to be 10 millimeters. It's like going to be 12 millimeters. And if I do a 25 millimeter, it might be 30 millimeters. So it works. It's just, there's a little size scaling that needs to be done. And some of the parts kind of calibrated to each other.
Yeah. The software that they're using for the OmniX isn't developed in-house. It's more from the controller, the manufacturer of the controller of the laser. It's actually the same type of controller that's in the Omtex Solus. And so I've seen very similar but slightly different options in both softwares, but you can tell it's kind of the base software, and then it's kind of badged and labeled for each laser and company. And so it's not specifically built by them for that laser, so there are some little quirks to it. And so getting some support with it, I feel like we're kind of going to ComMarker, and ComMarker's going to the other company to get some of that stuff worked out. But we can calibrate it in LightBurn, but that doesn't help us with the UV crystal side. So it's not a machine deficiency, it's a software calibration issue.
Yeah. Yep. But hopefully we'll get that resolved here soon. They've been working with us. Jeffrey Stone says that Anycubic has AI built in that catches these issues, and so does Bamboo, to an extent.
To varying degrees, yeah. A lot of the newer ones, especially if they've got Clipper running it in the background, it has a lot more of that. So it kind of depends on how well they implement it and such. So, and none of them are perfect. But yeah, it is nice that the newer 3D printers, you know, the bed probing, the bed leveling, you know, that used to be the big issue for people, is getting a level bed. You had to adjust your springs and really kind of mechanically level it out. And then sometimes you were using, you know, adhesives and such, which sometimes you still do, but it's gotten a lot better in the past few years. So it's nice seeing some of these things catch up with it.
Yeah. The AI stuff is, and I'm pretty sure I've got mine. I've got it turned on the A1, but I mean, it all depends on the camera, and the camera on the A1 is just not great. I think that's the biggest issue with the A1 that I have, is the camera. Like you can sit here and look at it now. I mean, the camera is just not, it's not in a good place. They kind of dropped the ball on that. And I've got a little lamp leaned over the top of it, illuminating the work area just so that I can see it. I do have some lights coming that I'm going to add to it to hopefully make that problem a little less annoying. But yeah, I'm one of these days I'm going to get me a boxed in Bamboo Lab. I don't know if I'm going to get the X1 or the P2 or the HDR or whatever. But right now I just have a hard time justifying the expense.
Bledford is asking, how well will the F2 cut small opaque acrylic parts for earrings or ornaments? If you're using the darker colors, it does pretty well, but you gotta keep in mind, you know, like earrings that are smaller, and if you keep them central to the bed, they'll be okay. But the further out, you're going to get more of that angled shape to it from the galvo swinging the beam out to the edges. And the edges, you might need to flame polish them to get it nice and smooth. The diodes, while they can cut acrylic and you can play around with your settings to get a decent edge, they always are just a little bit, I don't know, to me they're not as smooth as a CO2 by any means, and in some cases even just a little I don't know, they just seem like they have a slight grit to them and such, because it's not polishing it as much. So it will cut through black very well, and then the IR will engrave it very well. I'll be honest, with a lot of diodes, I don't get into too many other colors just because of the inconsistencies of the settings and such, but some deeper reds should be okay. But if you probably want to stay away from like your yellows and
anything that reflects blue. If it touches
Yeah.
blue on the rainbow, it ain't gonna do it real good.
So those are, even though they're opaque yellow and even blue and other colors, it's not gonna,
black, red, and green.
Yeah.
And orange. Orange does okay. Some orange I've had trouble with, but yellow, I can't say that I've ever had any good luck with it. Red and black are the two best. You can get, I have got some greens that'll cut, but red, like that's why, like if you go over there and look, I've got a whole bunch of red and black acrylic. It's because I can cut it with multiple different lasers. But yeah, anything beyond red and black, it's kind of iffy depending on the type, the level of transparency, of the material. Because even like a green, if you've got a green, yellow and blue make green, so therefore green reflects blue to an extent. So you're going to lose some of the power by it being reflected back, as well as if it's got too much, if it's not opaque enough, the light will like travel through it basically, and just like it just absorbs it and it goes away. Like especially like white. you can scratch at white all you want to. You're not going to get a clean cut on white. It's not happening.
Yeah, I know not everybody has access to one, but that's where CO2s make it so much easier.
Yes.
You get a clean edge and you get a nice drop on them. Seth Rosenberg's asking, where do you get your vent hoses? Been using 4-inch dryer vent, would like something better. So if you're wanting to get the more rigid circular PVC style, you can find that. I'll actually drop a link to some out on Amazon, but if you have like a local woodworking store, like a Woodcraft or a Rockler, they often have them, and a lot of times they might run some specials on them because they're highly used in hooking up your tools to your main line. So that's better, although any chance that you can, I would try to run, whether it's the steel or aluminum ducting or PVC pipe, any solid smooth wall. If it's a permanent fixture and a straight run, do yourself a favor and pick up some of that, because it'll have much less drag on your airflow. And that's one of the problems that people have, is that they're trying to run it too far. They got too many bends, they got too much length, and the further it goes, you're losing your efficiency. So anywhere you can reduce any losses by using some straight pipe, it'll be better. But inevitably, you always have a section that needs to be more of that flexible hosing, and that's where you can use some of that stuff.
Yeah.
Mr. Webb says, I've been making glass ornaments and using glow-in-the-dark paint to spray on the inside. It really makes the artwork pop. That's interesting. That'd be a
cool approach.
Be fun to try that out as well.
I saw a question about ultra cutting off. Brad's cuts. Was using my F1 today and had an issue with the IR module. It just stopped working for like 30 minutes. Any suggestions and what's up with that? Are you if you had it connected to a computer and you're running it from the computer, I would look at your power saving settings first before thinking that it's the laser, because a lot. I thought that does the F1 stream once it sends the file, or does it send it?
It depends on if you're doing it via Wi-Fi. It should send it and then run it, but it can stream it if you're via USB. But I have had my F1 sometimes lock up a mirror inadvertently, and I don't know why.
Huh.
Oddly enough, they like to warm up first. So sometimes if you try running it right away, like if it's been sitting and it's cooler in your IR module, sometimes I've had the module itself need a run or two to warm up. And some of the higher end ones will actually have like a warm up cycle for those. But I have had mine very randomly. It will sometimes just lock up a mirror. I don't know that it's ever been both, but I've had it in the middle of a job where it's scanning down and then it just stops moving in one direction. Like it'll still be going side to side, but not the other. And I'm not sure what's up with that. It's very random. Usually I let it sit, power cycle it, and it seems fine. But
yeah, this guy was saying the same thing. F1 Ultra, I've been running a couple of jobs and the job just stops. Business cards 5 does 5 just fine, then stops halfway through the 6th. Yeah, make sure that your Bill Gates, especially with laptops, more so than with desktop computers, but a lot of computers, if your settings aren't set to performance, if they're set to like balanced, or especially if they're set to like power saving, the machine, especially if it thinks you're not using the machine for so long, it will start cutting things off to try to conserve electricity, especially with laptops. So make sure that your power settings, because if it's connected by USB, or I don't know that it would affect it on Wi-Fi, but if it's connected by USB, it definitely will. I'd have to test it to see if it would do it on Wi-Fi. But yeah, if the computer goes to sleep or the USB, kills power or something like that, it could cause an issue. And it could be like Steve says, it could just be needing to warm up. I know the new F2 Ultra, actually, when you first power it up, it has a warm up cycle that it has to run through, just like the Omni One. The Omni One over here, like the Omni One, the head on the Omni One will not engage until it's completed warm up, till it gets up to a certain temperature before it takes off. So maybe that's something going on. I've never had that problem with my F1 that I recall. And it could be something with their software that, with XTool Studio, they may be inadvertently caused an issue somewhere, and there may be a bug fix coming out shortly.
Apparently JR wants a very large printer.
Yeah, me and you must have clicked the same one. I saw that too. Yeah, I had room for it. I'd love to have one, but my printer's in the house because I don't have any room out here to put it, and it's too dusty out here. You're talking about some bad adhesion.
Yeah, I had the Cheedy printer for a while, and it was bigger, but it was a bit obnoxious. And that one, the biggest issue I had on that one, it was so large, and then the filament was on the back, the case for it. So
you had to have a faceway behind it.
Well, it's like if you didn't have it in a spot where you could walk behind it, now you have to have it on something you can turn. Well, then that's less stable, and it's just counterproductive. So it's nice having a bigger print area until you got to deal with the bigger printer, unless they've thought it out well to where you can put it in a place and kind of leave it. But yeah, it's I find there's occasions when I want something bigger like that, but I like having multiple printers to, like if I'm running at something that needs 3 different parts of 3 different colors, I don't have to wait for one job to finish, start the next. I can set them up that way. But like we say with most machines, if you've got the space, you got the money, you'll never be sad that you have too much working area.
Yeah. Yeah. Working area is one of those things that you either got it or you don't. So, JR is asking, do cast and extruded acrylic smell differently when engraving? I don't know about that, but I know if you've got your hands and hold to some plexiglass, it'll smell different when you're what they call it, polycarbonate.
Polycarbonate,
instead of polyacrylic, or
stuff just gets
yeah.
That stuff just gets like molten,
and it pops and snaps and yeah, you'll know if you get your hands on some of it. It's basically plexiglass as opposed to acrylic. It looks and feels the same, but it doesn't burn the same. So that's probably what you've gotten into if you're noticing it smells different. Because whether it's extruded or cast, it should still be acrylic. It should, chemically speaking, should still be the same thing. It's just the process in which it's made into a sheet is different.
Yeah, hopefully you're not smelling it either way.
Yeah.
Hopefully you're venting that stuff out, but generally you notice it in the cut quality. You start seeing the little micro fractures, and if you add alcohol to the edge of like a laser cut extruded acrylic, you'll see it just start cracking into it pretty much almost right away. I mean, you really don't want to be applying alcohol to acrylic in any case, but yeah, I haven't. I try to vent it quite a bit, so I guess I haven't noticed too much. Maybe you'd notice when you open it up and such, but.
All right, Spark saying, what would you use the IR module for? I have the IR module for my S1, but have not exchanged it out. Well, there's a few case uses. Steve loves this one.
Got me in suspense now.
Depending on where you live. So you can put, this is a tag for the front of a vehicle. If you don't have front license plates, or if you have just, you just want cool license plates. This is anodized aluminum. It's actually pretty thick, and you can make cool plates out of it. So yeah, you can do cool stuff like this with an IR module. I think I don't remember if I did this one. I may have did this one on the S1. I've done a couple of them on the S1. Done a few of them on the P3 from Asmer. I've even done them on the X1 Ultra or the F1 Ultra, but you have to do them in sections on it because of the work area. But yeah, these are pretty handy. They take a while with an IR module.
Yeah, that's my frustration with IR modules is it's such a small spot size that sure you can do a bigger item, but it just takes so long, and the gantries are even just a touch slower at it than the galvos. So I don't know. I guess for me, it's a project that large would take so long that I have a hard time justifying why you would do it. So, for example, both David and I have the Atomstack Glacier, which is the nice water-cooled 100 to 120 watt diode laser. Well, they came out with a 4-watt water-cooled IR module for that beast, which is, 800 by 850. I can't imagine waiting for the time for a job that, that even remotely touches that. I've had those modules on just a standard 400 by 400 diode laser, and even using up that area is pushing it. Now, the Sculptfo one that I tested recently is a 20-watt fiber module on there, and at least that gives you a little more power if you want to maybe do some cutting on some thin materials. Sorry, headphone users there.
No. Yeah. So there's it's a big old boy now. It's got I'm guessing that's the focus on it. It's big. It's water cooled. It does have a quick connect. I'll give Atomstack that. Other companies did not do this.
Yeah.
It does have a quick connect for the water hose. So that's good. But yeah, I haven't even had a chance to play with it yet. So I've got to come up with a place that I can keep this behemoth of a machine that's not like all up in my way.
Yeah, Chris, you leave it running while doing other stuff, but can you imagine the amount of time if you filled out anything on the 800 by 800 millimeter can
Oh,
sheet?
yeah, it definitely takes a while. Now, the cool thing about the IR module with like anodize and stuff like that is you can run it pretty fast. So like that does help, but you know, it's not like you're trying to do like an engrave on stainless. If you were trying to do like a big piece of stainless, oh my gosh.
Yeah, but I mean, it's still such a small spot size that you got to have your line intervals so high. It just,
yeah,
you know, I have a hard time justifying it on a normal size diode laser, but one that's 4 times as large, I'm just kind of like, I feel it's a product that was made for something no one wants. But
yeah.
Oil Lamp Studio is asking, join late, apologies if it's already asked, but what are your thoughts on the UV Make UV printer delays and the longer UV printer alternative? We talked a little bit about this last week. They've had some struggles. You know, so they sent out the original printers to a bunch of people to do some testing, and then they sent it out to other people to do some promotional type video type stuff. And then they launched the Kickstarter with some timelines that they were hoping to meet. Through all that testing and getting it into the hands of more testers, they did start running into some issues they wanted to tweak, which caused them to redesign the ink cartridges, which caused them to have to redesign the printers and such. And they continue to work through those issues, and unfortunately it keeps kicking the timeline back. And so understandably, people are frustrated. They've invested some money that they expected to have the machines by now, and they don't have them. So I understand that that's frustrating, and I would be very frustrated too. I've been there before. I mean, I've been on Kickstarters that I've flat out forgot about them by the time the product was delivered to me. So it is part of the nature of the beast. But I do feel that Eufy is trying. The last thing they want to do is send out printers with a lot of problems. And this is, they were kind of the first ones to try to put a bit of a more consumer model out there. So they're going to go through some growing pains and learning struggles with that. The longer one, I think, we've worked with some of their lasers in the past. They're a company that's been around for a while, but they've also had some struggles with some of their Kickstarters. So I don't know that one's going to go necessarily any better, but I do feel like you're going to, much like you started seeing a lot of UV printer or lasers out there for more and more companies, I think you're going to start seeing additional companies kind of come into this consumer arena with UV printers. And hopefully that will help smooth things out. But as far as the people with the Eufy makes, all I can say is it is a very cool tool. Luckily I haven't run into all the problems that they've been having with some of the inks and such. Now I don't use mine day in and day out, or even weekend or week out. But it is a very cool tool to have. If you're looking at them and aren't sold on them yet, I would hold off and really see how well they do in other people's hands and how much people use them. If you have a product and you think you'll be keeping this thing busy day after day after day, it's probably great for you. But if you're going to have the occasional order, and it's going to sit for a week or two at a time, it might be best to outsource that work still. Because even though this one does have its automated cleaning and kind of moisturization system, it uses more ink to do that, which drives up the cost. So, and it's a balance, because you can do some very cool things with it, but if you're not doing it that often, you're gonna have to factor in a higher cost of supplies into that, just in the maintenance.
Yeah. Larry Schmidt's asking, can you zoom out on the F2 camera? No. The camera, I think you can zoom in, you cannot zoom out. XTool basically has that camera set to photograph that specific area of the, is that your cat or my cat?
That's mine.
That specific area of the work area. So you can't make it any bigger. Typically you can see, I'd say like 90% of the work area with it. I mean, I think there's a little bit right around the edge of the shade that you can't, but make sure you had your focus set when you took the picture, because if your focus isn't set, you're not going to get the full use of the camera. But like I said, the camera is very accurate, but it's not 100%. So please frame also. Yeah, there's gonna. I get the feeling that the UV printers are gonna get a lot more common. Like which the UV printers have been out there. They've just been really, really expensive. But I think the more, hobbyist UV printers are coming around, and I would personally, like you said, unless you have a market that you're going to get into, I'd probably just give it a little while and see what machines wind up being the rage. As far as, the first to the market's not always best. Look at bamboo. I mean, Creality beat bamboo to the market a long ways, and then bamboo come out and bam. I mean, no offense to Creality, but I had an Ender 3 and I spent more time adjusting the springs and everything, like Steve was talking about, upgrading the springs and trying to, get the little piece of paper and make sure it gripped the paper just the same amount as the last one gripped it. And then you're like, crap, I think that one might have been tighter. You spend all that time. So, I mean, one little advancement in a machine can be the difference between, taking the market and just being on the market. So you never know. You never know.
Yeah. Well, and also keep in mind that the UV resin, it's much like the 3D printing resin. You don't want to get this on your hands. It's corrosive to various, in its liquid form and uncured form. It can be a bit corrosive to various plastics and such. There are some VOCs with it that you're not going to want to, if you're using this heavy, you're not going to want to set this up on your dining room table. You want to have a spot where you can make sure that it's, vented a little bit as well. So it's not like an inkjet printer you hook up to your computer. It's bridging this kind of industrial machine into more of a consumer environment. So, that's where I just caution people, make sure you have some solid use for it and whatnot. Because you can make some really cool custom coasters with it,
Yeah.
Whereas, with our lasers and such, you're generally just getting a few tones of dark. But yeah, it's a very cool technology, but still has some growing pains, and there are some issues and concerns with it.
Somebody saying the license plates aren't available. If you'll just click at like other products or whatever, that's what I use. I mean, you can get them on Amazon, anodized aluminum. There's some more on here that are $21.99, but I haven't used those. But for some reason, a lot of times it'll be the same company making them, and they just like change their listings for some reason and break the links. But I went back and looked at my orders, and that's the ones I've ordered like 4 different occasions. So that's the blanks that I use, but there are other comparable blanks out there as well.
I bought some strictly for testing, so I got the thinner ones because they were like 0.4 millimeter, and that's not something I'd want to have on my car too long because it was pretty flexible. But if you want to do some testing or if it was just for decorative stuff, or if you're in a state like here where you have to have a front and rear plate.
Yeah.
Actually, my trailer, since it's a single axle and small enough, I have a lifetime registration on it that's on the tongue. That one I could have a customized plate on, but
yeah,
my normal vehicle.
Ron says, hi, guys. Can I get some tips for engraving on glass with the F2 UV? I can't seem to figure out where to focus. It seems to be as if the laser goes past the surface. You need to focus it on the surface of whatever it is you're engraving. Now, I will tell you, I've had several people tell me that they're having issues with the automatic focus on glass. It uses LiDAR, and I'm pretty sure because my little vacuum that I've got uses LiDAR, and it like sees its reflection in mirrors and stuff. So, but I'm not sure if maybe the glass is not causing an issue with the LiDAR for the automatic focusing. So what I would recommend is either take you like a Post-it note or maybe like a little piece of paper like this. And when you're focusing to the material, it's just like wrap that around the surface that you're trying to focus to, and focus it on that piece of paper. And then once you get it focused manually on the piece of paper, you could use the autofocus, but just visually make sure the two dots are touching by looking at the piece of paper. And once you get that done, go with that focus. Because I think a lot of people are having issues with glass is due to focus. And glass with a UV laser, and it's not just something that XTool has a problem with. It's just the nature of UV and the nature of the short focal forgiveness of UV. It's got to be right. And if it's not right, if your glass is not flat, if it's not level or parallel with the lens or whatever you want to call it, you're going to have issues. So one thing that I will tell you is if you do engrave glass, and let's say you get like a really sporadic engrave because of the focus or whatever, if you don't move anything, you can you can drop the focus down just a little bit and run it again, as long as you don't bump anything or move anything. I had to do that with, well, my wife just took it in the house. Never mind. I bought some that had like waves in them, and it doesn't work real well. So what I had to do is basically I think I did 4 passes at 4 different depths with the Z-axis. And what I did is I started at the top, did a pass, then I lowered it like a millimeter using XTool Studio by changing the number on the thickness of the material. And I lowered it another 1 millimeter, 2 millimeters, until I got 4 passes. And even though this thing had like waves in it, I got a nice engrave, but now it took a ridiculously long amount of time to do it because of those various focal lengths in there. But if I hadn't ran it but that one pass, I would have had the low spots in that tumbler or that glass would not have engraved. I had to run a pass, drop it, run a pass, drop it, and I did that a total of 4 passes. Insane amount of work. Not something I would do 100 of them. But I had started that one. I was like, you know what? I done told Brandy I was going to give it to her when I got through with the video. So I'm like, I'm going to make this work. And I made it work, but it was a pain.
Yeah.
Because you can't use the little knob because you can't control how far it moves. So you have to go into XES under the little measurement tool and just change that number, like subtract 1, save, subtract 1, save.
Spark 33 is asking on the RFID wallets, do you just engrave those like you would tumblers, just taking off color on the aluminum? And
depends.
I mean, if it's the anodized aluminum ones, yeah, basically you're taking the anodization away, and depending on your laser, it either just removes down to bare aluminum or can turn it a little bit white depending on how well it removes that and such. The IR ones will give it a really nice contrast, like a real brilliant white when it does that, whereas the diodes tend to be a little more kind of a muted grayish white. But yeah, generally speaking, that's what most people are doing.
What's up, Sir Cody? How are you?
Oil Lamp Studio, cutting out pieces that have been printed. Which do you prefer, the LightBurn print and cut with the camera, or just absolute coordinates and a jig and having ample bleed to cut with any drift? A lot of times, I guess it depends. If it's a one-off, I'll try to hopefully have some bleed to have some variance. But if it's multiple things that I'm cutting or a lot of like the same object, I'll take the time to set up a jig. I don't mess around with the print and cut feature a whole lot, just because I don't do that a lot. Having the Eufy printer, I actually more often will laser cut an item and then print on it. That's one of the nice features there, but I haven't done as much of cutting out pre-printed items.
Yeah, a little dusty up in here. Somebody's been making dust.
Say we're gonna have Echo order some Allegra for you.
Yeah. Bulldog says glass works better on a CO2. Depends on what you're doing. I mean, CO2s do a really good job on glass. If you've got something that is going to come in and out of focus, then yes, CO2s do better because they're a little more forgiving when it comes to focal changes. But when it comes to the look that you get from a UV, CO2, it's not going to quite hold up to that. I mean, you can get some nice looking engraves, but it is not a UV laser engrave. It's just, there's a little bit of difference there. But now, ease of use, CO2 is probably easier. But you got to be careful not to break the glass with CO2, because if you run it in focus or go too slow or too hot, then you can cause rapid expansion inside that glass, and that little pocket of molten glass expands real fast. And when it does, it's just the whole thing. It just falls apart. I've done it. I've done it with blue lasers, and I've done it with CO2s. So, especially the cheap like Dollar Tree wine glasses, those things will fall apart in a hurry with a CO2 or a blue laser.
Yeah, you get a little heat on there, and they like to shatter.
Tripod agrees.
Yeah, CO2 is easier, and that's the point I was making before. Is it a UV gets the best effect, the smoothest effect without damaging the glass, but it is not as easy to get an effect as a CO2.
Yes. UV hands down is the most sharp, crystalline, smooth. It looks sandblasted. It is a beautiful engrave. But if you're half a millimeter out of focus, you're not going to get it. You're not going to get that. You're going to get spotty, missing spots, pieces that aren't engraving properly. You get down to about a millimeter out of focus, you ain't leaving a mark. You're not even, I mean, you might, if the light hits it just right, be able to tell that the laser went across it. But yeah, a millimeter in is about all you got with the UV, and that's going to be mixed results. Whereas with a CO2s are made more or less for cutting, and so the beam is, most CO2s, a quarter of an inch, you can still engrave glass because it actually will give you a better effect a lot of times because you get a little more overlap because you're out of focus.
Yeah, so, usually that's what I'm doing is defocusing it a little bit. And I touched on this when I did the XTool S1 engraving glass a year ago. Defocusing at about 3 millimeter gives it a softer effect.
Yeah, so. blue laser, same way. 3 mil is kind of my go-to for defocusing on any kind of clear anything with a laser. Bulldog Creation says, is UV the same as IR? And I'll let you explain that one. It's more of a technical thing.
No, it's not. UV lasers are generally down in around 350 nanometer wavelength.
355.
And the IR is a much higher wavelength, up around, 1064? 1064. And so they interact with materials differently. The UV is able to see more materials and interact with them, but they don't get as hot. They don't sinter as much. So it's a much different effect. And the materials that they can interact with are different just because of that wavelength. So,
yep. And one thing too with the wavelength, one way of looking at it is with that lower frequency, that wavelength. That's part of the reason that it does such a really, really good job of the high speeds and a really smooth engraving. But the wave is so short. That's why it affects the focus of the beam as well. But there's a whole lot of sciencey stuff in there. But generally speaking, CO2s are going to have your most forgiving focuses from my experience of all lasers. Like, especially if you got the right lens in there, a CO2 can, like, it can reach out and touch you. Whereas like diodes, typically, because they have the little shields on them and everything, you can't get too close or too far away with diodes. But yeah, in a perfect world, you'd have a laser that could do all the different spectrums, but that would be a nightmare to build. Yeah, the dot size of UV is tiny, tiny, tiny.
Mm-hmm.
And the price tag of all of those are different too.
Yep.
You figure the price per like square centimeter of work area, and UVs are by far the most expensive, because your UV, like the Omni one is like a what, 150 by 150 millimeters. And if you price that and divide that by the cubic centimeters of work area, it's what, 15 centimeters cubed. That's a lot of money per cubic centimeter, as opposed to a blue diode. Even a fiber is cheaper, because the fibers usually have a little bit bigger work area as well. So, but the blues and now the UVs, I like them because they're just so forgiving with materials. Like, you can engrave anything, just about it. Like, I mean, now you're not gonna be doing like any kind of deep engrave like on this coin right here. You're not gonna be doing that with a UV. Not unless you've got like 10 years time to waste. But it would engrave aluminum. It just wouldn't be able to do that deep engraving. Rich Cross is saying, how do those compare to a fiber laser? If you're talking about a UV, that's what I was just saying. This was done with a 60-watt fiber, and that's like 2 millimeters deep, millimeter and a half deep. Now it took like an hour for each side on a 60-watt, but you couldn't do this with the UV without dropping the focus, because it would be out of focus after the first pass or two. So that's one big thing. Now, I may be getting a bigger MOPA soon, but this is a 60-watt, and it took quite a while to make this coin. And this is what this is, in case you're wondering, guys. Sometimes when me and Steve argue about something, we have to flip the coin to see who's right. So it usually lands on Clack Shack, because when I flip it, before I show it, I make sure that it's on Clack Shack. But yeah. But UVs and fibers are totally different. So there's a badge I did. That was a 60-watt MOPA as well. What you got?
Nothing other than the saying a fiber is an IR laser. They're just different methods of, they're creating different power levels of the same wavelength.
Yeah, it uses the same wavelength, but
yeah.
Fiber typically refers to the method in which the light makes it from the source to the galvanometer. So you can have a CO2 fiber, an IR fiber, a UV fiber, even a blue fiber, technically. Because that umbilical cord that comes out of the back of the head that goes to the base is a fiber optic cable. Except for with the UVs. The UVs don't do that. The beam is right there at the mirrors. That's right. And I usually wind up winning the coin tosses. They may be rigged, but oh. All All right. So for the ones of you that don't know, while we're, how far in are we? We're almost at 2 hours. For those of you that don't know, we will be having our Christmas giveaway here on the 21st. We got lots of cool stuff that's already been confirmed, and I'm waiting on some of these other companies to confirm. They've told me a while back what they were going to give, but because there's a lot of attrition in these companies and people move around and like we get reassigned to different points of contact, we wanted to go back and make sure of who's going to be given what. There's a couple of companies that their approval process to give stuff away is quite lengthy. And so I'm waiting on some emails to come in, but there may be more stuff. There probably is going to be more stuff added to the list of stuff for the giveaway. And it's going to be pretty cool. Like I said, there's going to be lots of, especially if you don't have a laser or if you don't have a CNC, there's going to be lots of opportunities for you to get your hands on something to learn with. These aren't necessarily going to be the cream of the crop machines, but there'll be something cool that you can learn with and make projects with. And maybe, a couple of them are pretty formidable. So hopefully y'all be around to take your chances with that. We're going to be doing the live giveaway. So unfortunately you'll have to be present to win. And the reason we do it that way is to keep, because if I put a form out there and say enter to win a laser, there's going to be spammers and bots and scammers and everybody else trying to get in there on it. So by doing it in the live show, the people that are partnering with us get a little more, like exposure, and we can make sure that we're not getting scammed or anything, because we don't want that to happen. Smoking Notes is asking, how are you guys liking the Atomstack C4 Pro CNCs? Certain aspects of it I liked, but they had a flaw that they say they have fixed. Mine, I got frustrated with it and I quit messing with it, but it done a really good job the first couple of projects, but I had a little bit of slippage in the axis, like every now and then, which now I'm being aggressive with my speeds and feeds because I've gotten used to running very powerful CNCs. The axis is what slip occasionally. So we had to do a break-in process and we had to do a bunch of different things. I got it running a little better. Like it wasn't having the issues that it was before. Steve said he has done really well, but he was being a little more conservative with his speeds and feeds. So I'll let him speak to his experience. My experience is I like most of the design, but the axis is slipping was a problem that at first they didn't think it was a problem. Then they said it was a problem, but they said they come up with a fix. So I'll let Steve explain it from his perspective.
Yeah, I think if you stick with the original, 200-watt spindle and 1/8-inch bits, and you do a solid break-in on it, it's okay for jobs that can be done with smaller 1/8-inch bits and not driving it too hard. But yeah, it's unfortunately a bit limiting. They don't have necessarily a good upgrade path, and I don't feel like it would hold up to a 700-watt trim router type spindle. Whereas, the Masuda 3S or the Reno 4040 Pro will. It is nicely built and it does function well in its stock form. But when you start trying to push it harder and trying to get into more of those aggressive bits and tool paths, that's where it really struggles. So being at the price point it's at, it's getting it's getting too close to like the 4040 Pro Max and the Masuda. As a matter of fact, if I haven't looked at the price difference or to see what there is, but Wizmaker has the same thing in a orangish gold color, exact same machine. So
Yeah.
I think this is something that Atomstack sourced because they wanted to dip their toe into CNC world, and it does work, but you gotta have realistic expectations of it and how hard you can push it. So due to its lack of expandability, unless that's all you want to do, you might want to look at some of the other ones that are out there.
Yeah, the Jinmitsu, the Same Smart machines, they make a solid machine. You get from the 30-30, the 30-20s, the 40-40s, the 60-50. I mean, those machines are pretty solid. Well, and like I said, Atomstack, there were some features about the way they built theirs that I thought was really cool. But when I started trying to push it harder and harder and started trying to do more complex engraves with it, that's when I started getting the slipping. And they sent me a thing and was where I had to take the board off and use a voltometer to try to adjust the voltages to the steppers and all to try to fix it, which they claim they're going to do in the consumer models, but I'm not willing to bet that they did it on all of them and tell you guys that, oh yeah, it works great, because I'm not so sure. You know what I mean? I don't know. But with the, like Steve said, with the little spindle that came with and 1/8 bits, it should be okay. But if you upgrade to the bigger spindle and start trying to push it harder, it'll do a great job. Like I did a flag and it did a great job through like 80% of the flag, and then all of a sudden it missed some steps and it just messed the whole thing up.
Yeah, the machine is $60 cheaper through Wismaker.
$60 cheaper, yeah.
Yeah.
JR says, I've got a Thunderbolt and a ComMarker Omni 1. I like the multi-format work. If you were me, what would be the next capability in digital work that you would invest in? Can't say, it depends. Well, that's very limiting of you there, JR. If you're not 3D printing, 3D printers are awfully nice. If you got the ComMarker Omni 1 and the Thunderbolt's very capable. It's just a small work area.
Well, and I'm kind of wondering here, because we know JR has a CNC and 3D printers. So I don't know, kind of running out of I don't know, maybe he needs a
plasma cutter,
four-axis grinder, and he can make his own bits. Oh wait, Cody's doing that. No, I actually, that's the thing. If I had the area in my shop to designate to metalworking, it would be kind of fun to have one of those hobby grade plasma cutters for cutting out metal parts.
Bad. I can't stand it, but I'll burn the place down trying to put one in here. I think that's where I would go if I had the appropriate space to it. I keep telling like my father-in-law and some of my friends, I'm like, hey, you guys really you should get a CNC plasma cutter. Yeah, they're more and then you could just
metal workers
and take them over there.
Yeah, I mean that's how I first got into my CNC router. Is a buddy of mine had one, and so I started designing files, saying, hey, can I come over and just try this? And eventually he sold it to me. So
yeah. All right, Burn Car Print saying, what wattage is your UV laser? I have 3 currently in the shop. I got the XTool Ultra UV, which is a 5 watt. I got the Omni 1 right there. That's 5 watt. And then this one's been upgraded to a 10 watt, but I haven't really used it since I upgraded it because I can't get the lens to calibrate correctly. So
yeah, it's
a 10 watt, but right now it's less effective than the 5 watt was because it's not calibrated properly.
Rich is asking, LightBurn question for you both. I have an Acmer P2 33 watt, and the beam size is more of a rectangle, I believe. What's the best way to set the kerf in LightBurn to accommodate for the different X and Y dimensions of the beam? I'll be honest, I average them out. So I'll run my tests squares, and I'll measure both, your X axis and your Y axis to get your kerf difference between the object and the cutout. Of course, you got to divide by half because you got 2 beams in each direction, or 2 passes, and then I average them all together to get an average kerf. Because at the distances we're talking about, unless you have something that's just a long rectangle, it's going to be close enough for most wood type materials and such that are going to have just a little bit of give to the grain. Now, if you're talking plastic parts and metal parts, might be more of an issue. But But that's how I do it, and it seems to work out pretty well. Unless you're doing like marquetry inlay stuff, I make my box joints so they're snug, but I'm not like having to like take a mallet to push them together. You're going to be doing more damage there. When you actually add the glue, it tends to expand the fibers, and that's going to help lock it in place as well. So I go for a friction fit, but not like snap tight, hammer it together and it's never coming apart fit. So that's how I do it.
Yep. Whatever his name is there says, is there a rotary I could buy if my UV laser does not have a rotary plug on it using LightBurn? What UV laser you got that don't got a rotary plug? Because if it's a Galvo, I'm assuming, I haven't seen a gantry UV. If it's a Galvo, you're going to have a plug on the machine in order to use a rotary. Like that's like part of the equation. If the controller can't send signals to the rotary, it's not going to work.
Michael Pierce is asking, what are your thoughts on the XTool P3? Well, I've put out a couple videos using it, so you can definitely check out some of my experience with it that way. This time I played around with turning off some of the what they call their automatic creation system, and I could work with it either way. There are a few times where the automation is a little frustrating because you got to have the lid open for it to take the camera view and then flip it down and such. But overall, I'm happy with it because I finally have a 36-inch wide CO2 laser. That's expanded some of my capabilities. It's been cutting things fairly well. Now I do want to pick up their I need to get their long lens at least, because that'll expand some of the cutting capabilities with it. And when they have their lens in there to accommodate the autofocus, it actually sets the lens in a different spot. So you kind of got to get their carriage to make it right. Otherwise, if you just swapped it out for a different focal length lens, it would kind of mess up the autofocus bit. But I think they took a lot of lessons learned from the P2 and the P2S. They've incorporated into this, and so far I'm happy with it. Now, is it for everyone? No. I think if you're happy with the XTool environment, it's definitely a nice upgrade. But you can get a 90-watt CO2 laser with a slightly larger bed that maybe you got to do some more of your own tinkering and own setup on, maybe add your own, air pump and such for less, and have fewer of the automations and integrations, but it'll also might be more efficient for you if that's how your workflow is. So there's been some things where I sometimes find, and I've run into this with some CNC software as well, where they're trying to make it easy for the new user, and I'm thinking through the more industrial way that I've had to work with machines in the past, that I'm getting tripped up by it holding my hand too much sometimes. So yeah. I still want to run some things through the P3 to really kind of, dial in where do I think maybe its shortcomings might be versus, it's a nice step up in power and whatnot. So I'll be doing more projects and more videos with it. So I'm sure my views will evolve a little bit, but so far I've been happy with it. It's been a nice addition to the shop.
Yeah, I don't have one, guys. Hashtag Steve's golden boy. But but yeah. Now, I will tell you this. Y'all, I heard somebody who was talking about rotaries and stuff the other day, and I haven't even told Steve about this. But you know how we were discussing the Reno 45 and how if we could find a good rotary that worked with it, that was worth a flip, that it would probably be a good one for tumblers. Well, I ordered these because I was preparing to build myself an adapter to make a rotary work with the machine. And lo and behold, while doing my video the other day, I got my old RA2 out and was messing with it. And guess what I had in the box? This is the plug for RA2 that connects to the P2, and it just so happens to fit the Reno 45. And the RA2 Pro will work with the Reno 45. Now, I'm pretty sure it's going to rotate backwards because, you know, the XTool products usually did. But I got to thinking the home location on this one, it may not. So worst case scenario, I either have to flip some of these conductors around inside here or just use the crossover cable that came with the RA2. But I should be able to use the RA2 Pro with the Reno 45. And that's coming up this week. I'm going to test that. I guess I just got some black tumblers in today. And I plan to see if the Reno 45 can use this. If this works, that means that you can go to XTool's website and order a RA2 Pro for a P2 and use it with your Reno series monitor.
Cool. I've got that cable hanging around somewhere.
Yeah, I was going to say, and I know you've got an RA2 Pro. So, yeah. So I just happened to look at it and I was like, because I was already working on building an adapter cable. And then I pulled my RA2 Pro out and this was in the box with it. And I'm like, wait a minute. I don't got to make it. I'd already ordered these. But if we ever do, you know, if I ever do need another airline connector, I got plenty now. But yeah.
Greg's asking, how am I storing my filament rolls? I have a wire shelf that's just out of view. And they're kind of stacked up there. There's some of them that come with a resealable bag and the desiccant pack, so I'll put them back in there. Otherwise, I try to shoehorn them into a gallon Ziploc bag.
That's what I do.
That being said, I was actually just thinking about this today, that I really want to build a rack where I can place them on there so I can see the colors and the spools I have on hand. Because when you start doing more of these weird fun things and the chunkables and other things, you start getting a lot of rolls of colored PLA and such. And I'll probably still keep them in the bags, although I do have a couple of dryers that I can use. It's nice to keep them less moist. But yeah, I think I want to build a bit of a rack. So I don't know if I'll 3D print I'll probably do something with, I've seen some with even just like PVC rods and then either 3D printed or CNC'd or laser cut rods. Or it's like the EMT conduit as well. Those are probably a little more rigid, but probably do something like that.
Galvanized conduit and then 3D print yourself some arms for it. That would be cool.
Yeah, I'm going to try to figure something out of that here over the Christmas break. Or
you could CNC yourself some arms for it. CNC them out of plywood and use some galvanized conduit for bars. That'd be pretty darn sturdy.
Well, at that point, I could just drop them into the 80-watt laser.
Well, I mean, if you had an 80-watt laser, I don't got one of those, Steve. JB's asking, how do we enter the giveaway? It'll be during the live. It'll be the keyword stuff. So, like, you'll be in the live, and we'll say, this is up for grabs. Type in hashtag, whatever the word is, and then you'll put that in there. We'll give it like 2 or 3 minutes for everybody to put their entries in, and we'll spin the wheel. And whoever's name gets picked, you'll have to email us, and then we'll ship it to you, or the company will ship it to you. Because all we're doing is we're picking the winners, and then we're putting it on a spreadsheet, and then we're sending everything to the companies, and then the companies are going to ship the stuff to you guys. And the reason we're doing it that way is because if, like, say, one of you guys were to win the machine from Asmer or whoever, they're just going to send it straight to you. So even if you're in the UK or whatever, you don't have to worry about it because they have the ability to ship from different locations.
Well, depending on some of them are going to restrict their shipping, and we'll have that noted. But a lot of them are.
Yeah, like Cody. I think Cody said Continental because he's come in. Well, no, his is a $100 coupon. So yeah, so Cody's will be basically, I guess, if you have them shipped overseas, the shipping's still gonna cost you maybe. But yeah, it's not gonna be difficult. Cody says, has anyone heard of Asmer laser? Yeah, I've had several. I got one hanging right there, matter of fact, still. That big 4 foot by 4 foot one I had. That's who made it. So, yeah, I heard of them. Seth said he's just here to watch the cats in the background. Yeah, we both got them wandering around behind us. You never know when they're going to come up.
Yeah, I haven't jumped up here yet, but it's getting about time.
ID Monster says, are the CNC machines in your giveaway good ones to learn on the CNC hobby? The Shapeoko one is that's a formidable machine. The other ones, I'm not a big fan of the 3018 that Genmitsu's offered up, but I mean it. As long as like we say, as long as your expectations are you're going to be able to do X, Y, Z, it'll work. It's the same fundamentals, but you're not going to be doing production on like serving trays or anything on it. It's going to be one of those things that you're going to make small stuff, play around with some plastics or some acrylics or maybe some softer woods, get the right speeds and feeds. You can do a lot with it, but yeah. Never had a one laser. I can't say.
Do I like the 85X? I think it's a capable printer. It does. I mean, it's almost as capable as the Bamboos. It's got a smaller build area, and it functions the same, but it feels just a touch like cheaper. Not that it does anything bad, but it's just like it feels like the fans are a little bit louder. Maybe the movements are just a little bit louder and such. No, I've other than just recently, I think I had some bad filament running through there, and I got to clean out that the nozzle, which I've got some spares coming tomorrow as well. I'll get that back up and running and be able to play more with it. I do like being able to run TPU through it, so that's one of the reasons it'll probably stick around, is that it's easier to run it through that than my other machines that are set up right now. So, but for a budget printer, it's been pretty decent.
Yeah, I don't have one of those either. Hashtag Steve gets all cool toys. Jerry Richmond says, has anybody ever tried to 3D print a vent adapter that would allow a rolly laser to vent from under the honeycomb instead of above it? Not that I'm aware of. I mean, they may have, but I don't have one. That wouldn't be a bad idea, though. That was one of the few things that I think could have been improved on that machine.
Yeah, that would, well, on any machine, if you can get that airflow going down instead of up.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've went over. I mean, but we got good attendance. So, anytime y'all got the questions coming, we're going to keep answering them if we can. So if you got any last minute questions, drop them in there, guys. If not, we'll have to get Steve in bed because he's got to go do that W thing tomorrow.
That I do. Hopefully, last week I had some people that were stragglers with late Thanksgiving vacations, and then there's been sickness going through, so it's just like we were just short staffed all week, so it kind of made me a little tired. But yeah, hopefully this week's a little bit better. We're getting towards the end of the semester at school, so kind of a little burst of energy, and then things calm down a bit, and hopefully keep on track. It'll, between weather and and being tired, it's been a little tricky to be out in the shop this week, but hopefully I'll get back out there this week. I'm super close to my end of the year goal to hit 25,000 subscribers. I'm like 48 away right now. So please share the channel. We try to spend some time here Sunday nights answering questions. I try to keep my videos more educational than anything, or at least entertaining. And so if you know people that would get some benefit out of it, hey, appreciate sharing those. But otherwise, just thanks for watching the videos. Thanks for commenting on them. And thanks for hanging out here as well. Makes this a lot of fun.
Yeah, I just got another confirmation back for the giveaway from Atomstack.
Awesome.
So yeah. So I don't know exactly what they got in there, but it looks like they've got a couple of their like little entry small machines that they've been talking about. R8, is that their new Rotary? I think that's their new Rotary. But yeah, they're gonna jump in with us and contribute some stuff. So like I said, there's several people that I've even got an email into, the people that make those machines right over there, and I'm waiting, but their process is a little more time consuming for them to confirm anything. So waiting to hear back. But like I said, y'all be sure to put it on your calendars, tell folks to come hang out with us. And because the more exposure these Christmas giveaways get from year to year, the more involvement companies are going to want to do the following year. Because for them, their number one concern above everything, most of the time, not always, but most of the time, is they want a lot of people to see it. They want to market their products and stuff. And we talk about all the companies, and that's one thing that me and Steve have done. And we talked about this back when we first started doing this live. We didn't want it to be the whatever brand promotion Sunday night live. We wanted it to be answering questions for you guys. If somebody comes in here and says, ask a question about an Atomstack machine, we don't want to be like, well, you shouldn't have an Atomstack because this brand over here is the best brand. You should just go get that brand. We don't want none of that. We are brand agnostic. We understand that not everybody likes the same brand, and not everybody can afford or wants to purchase the same brand. Because I don't have a Eon laser nowhere in this building because I just can't bring myself to spend the money. They're good machines, but we ain't got it like that. You know what I mean? So, and I don't expect you guys to. So we try to work with you guys and be, if nothing else, be ambassadors between you guys and these companies. And that's what we're trying to do, is get some stuff to maybe, it might not be the machine that's going to like start your business off, but maybe have some cool stuff that you can have to play with and use. And even if you yourself don't want the machine, let's just imagine that it's somebody that already has a bunch of lasers, but you have a grandkid or grandson or granddaughter that likes doing this stuff, that you want to be able to give them a machine to practice with or something. Then maybe that's why you want the machine, because some of the machines are going to be very entry based, but so is a lot of these machines hanging around the wall. So was that XTool 10 watt that got my shop started some odd years ago. So, but we like giving back to you guys and, hanging out, having fun. The only thing we haven't got right now is the 3D printer world. So if there's any 3D printer world companies that hasn't jumped in and contributed, hey, you might be the only 3D printer company whose logo will be on that flyer. Because I've got a couple more after tonight's emails that I've got to put on that list right there. But those are our sponsors. Partners is what I like to call them, because they're not really sponsoring it. They're partnering with us to give you guys things. And the Same Smart, Sculpt Fun, Carbide 3D, Acemer, of course, Cody over at Jenny Bits, and LightBurn. And I guess I will update that accordingly this week. And I'm going to be doing another little short video to let everybody know about it as well. So that we can, like I said, give those guys a little bang for their buck, as well as keep everybody informed of what's coming up. So,
I mean, they're all sponsoring the giveaway. They're not sponsoring and then they're paying us anything, but they're sponsoring the giveaway, and we appreciate them for it. But so the question is, when exactly is it? It's going to be in 2 weeks, December 21st. And we are planning on getting started a little bit early, just so that we can have a little bit of chat time about what's going on, as well as have enough time to actually run the giveaways. Last year it was a little time pressed, a little chaotic, so we're going to give ourselves a little extra time. So like David said, we'll be putting out more information to make sure people are aware of it, and hopefully everybody can make it and have some fun with us that hopefully we'll fill this up with even more logos here in the next week.
They'll have to get smaller if I get too many of them. Or we'll have to get smaller. Something's gonna get smaller. But we appreciate you guys coming and hanging out with us. And like I said, next Sunday, if you're new to the live, be sure to mark your calendar. Next Sunday, we'll be back and have some more information from y'all. You got the date wrong. There's not 21 months in a tier. What?
Chris is one of those weird countries like the rest of the world that they put the.
Oh, yeah, 21 of.
We do month day.
December.
We do month, day, year. They do day.
Yeah, they drive on the wrong side of the road too, don't they?
When in Rome. I don't think they do it. I think they drive on the right
side.
Do it in
Australia? I don't remember if they do it in Australia or not. I know they do over in the UK. Anyway, all right, guys. Well, y'all have a good one, and I'll be in the shop this week. Hopefully, I can get some videos out. I've been testing the alien cell, working with it, working on some other stuff, and hopefully we'll get something out. And I'm going to be playing with this this whole Reno tumbler possibility idea here too. So we'll see how that goes. But till next time, be safe. Have a good day.
See you, everyone.